Morning, everyone. My name is Richard Cheney. I am a cloud solution architect working in one commercial partner. I've been here for about 3 years now. Before then, I used to work in the channel as well for about 20 years. So I've been involved in managed services and professional services and all different aspects of some of the things that you get involved in. And you can tell I'm technical because I'm dressed down, inverse snobbery we have at Microsoft. We're going to talk through a couple of key areas around Lighthouse. I'm in the fortunate position here of not being too directly involved in some of the back-end business processes here, or in some of the incentives. So it's just purely technical conversation with me, and we'll step through this and see what this does. Okay, so it's very complex being a partner. The channel is difficult. And it's really key for Microsoft that we work with you guys as the partner community to make sure everything works as it should do and we leverage everything at that level. But it isn't easy necessarily to do this. So we've been taking lots of feedback from you as partners over the last couple of years. What we're seeing is that partners work differently in different areas. Okay? So when you're doing managed services, if you're doing professional services, if you're transacting Azure, if you're dealing in specific technologies and becoming a specialist, then actually the complexity of different partners getting involved with different customers at different levels, using different methods, using different subscription types, is one of the reasons why you're seeing the complexity in the different incentives and reward mechanisms, recognition mechanisms that we have. Okay? So we see that. But there's also an opportunity here as well. So one of the key things with cloud is it really helps you to accelerate what you can do with automation. So as we're seeing the growth, an explosion in cloud adoption, migrations to cloud, new services on cloud, you can scale up what you're doing with your cloud customers without necessarily scaling up the people to help deliver that. So that's really where the automation comes in. But you can only do that if you have visibility across all of your different customers and subscriptions to be able to make that automation happen and happen at scale. And that's where Lighthouse comes in. So here's some of the things we've been hearing. So I need my MSP to lead me, not be on the journey of discovering along with me. We do a lot of work within one commercial partner with the technical people, actually around enablement, around skills development, about building up your practices. And we're going to continue doing that. We've created lots of materials. You've seen Microsoft Learn. We've seen some of the materials we have in terms of documentation, all the programs we run to help build up your practices and do that. And I see people in the audience that I know we've done work with. One of the things we hear is, as managed service providers, actually, who here runs managed services for customers on your CSP? Good, so it's a good chunk of you. If you talk to your technical people in those areas, then actually seeing those different customers has not been easy. You end up diving in and out, and we'll talk through that in a section. So creating admin users within your customer tenancies is a pain. Moving between different customers is a pain. Hopefully we're going to fix some of that. And this gets worse as you become more successful. As you onboard more customers, as you grow your number of subscriptions, then it just becomes tenfold, 100-fold in terms of the difficulties you're facing at that level. We did a lot of work a few years back when we moved from what we called the ASM model to the Azure Resource Manager model around role-based access control, who's got the right role to do the right things on the right scope points, on the right resources. And we're going to touch on some of that as we move through this. So everything we're talking about with Lighthouse, which was Project Towboat, for those of you who are aware of that, as we've been working on it over the last couple of years, is around improving things. And this is what we're trying to fix, okay? So historically, the access you had into your customer subscriptions did not lend itself to automation. If the benefits you get from automation aren't as great, because what you can see when you've got that customer view is smaller, you don't automate as much, okay? Bad for you, bad for us. If you have customers in regular markets, then compliance is really important. Who here has done work with Azure policy and policy initiatives and what we do around compliancy? Okay. For those of you who haven't had a look at Azure policy, I suggest you do so. Have a look at what we've got in terms of compliancy within Security Center. So if you've got customers who want to be PCI DSS, if you've got NHS customers, if you've got those who want ISO 27001, then we have policy initiatives which help you and help your customers get compliant. Okay? But again, applying those policies at scale has not been easy. In terms of scripting, automating, using things declaratively, then larger organizations have basically overcome some of the limitations of the platform by stitching things together and ended up with individual customer management. So rather than taking a global, this is how we manage all our customers, this is the standard service we do on cloud, you end up with one particular service, one customer, a bit of automation for another customer. It doesn't scale as well. So this is what we're fixing. Okay, so Lighthouse, what does it do? Key thing it does is it enables you to widen the scale, the scope of what you can see. Okay, so why it's called Lighthouse? It's when you think about the beam of light rather than boats crashing into rocks. That's probably the best thing to do. And it's enabled you to automate and scale your cloud management work. Okay, gives you that visibility and ability to apply the governance and the policy at a wider scale. Okay, it also opens up some doors. Okay, so if you want to look at different ways of actually going to market with different types of technical solutions, there's some things here and some other technologies like Private Link and others which have been announced recently at the Inspire event, which comes into this area. So this really delivers on cross-tenant management. Okay, if you're multi-tenanted in the way that you're managing your services, this is really key. It also feeds into what we do with the APIs, all the licensing types, and so on. You know, we talked about CSP today. You'll have customers who are on EAs. Some have got direct subscriptions. There's a whole host of other older ones. This mechanism doesn't care. Okay, it will traverse across everything. So, it's basically built up from different levels. Like I said, the ARM layer at the bottom has been extended with this capability. It feeds into everything we have in terms of Azure identity. So currently your users will be going into customer accounts because they've got admin on behalf of, or they've got user principals which have been created within that customer tenancy, or they've got service principals which have been granted access with business to business. Multiple different mechanisms for that to happen. But everything comes back to the identities we have within your own tenancies for Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, or for your customer tenancies. Again, this meshes in with that. Once you've got that visibility, once you've got that access, what can you do with it? Okay, so this is some of the tooling that is being built up to be able to work multi-tenanted. So like I said, Azure policy. Defining how you do policy, what your defaults are for tagging on resources, and applying that to all of your customers rather than just that one specific customer. Yeah. When you are talking to customers about migrating to the cloud, one of the reasons we have the Cloud Adoption Framework, one of the reasons we have things like Azure Policy, is to break down some of those barriers to adoption. Okay? And if one of those is getting that level of governance, manageability, the guardrails over what your customers can do on that platform, so enabling developers to work the APIs with the ports and everything else, but making sure it's under control, this is why having a default policy as part of that is really key, because then you can have that as part of the conversation. Okay? Talk to them about adoption. Likewise, monitor. The monitor capabilities in Azure are really good, really strong. So if you look at some of the custody queries and things you can do, actually the level of detail you can get into, some of the customer reporting is fantastic. Being able to do that across multiple tenants at the same time really opens up some doors as well. Okay? There's lots of material out there in terms of getting up to speed at a deeper level with monitor. That can really extend the capabilities of your service management teams. And that feeds into Security Center. So Security Center has a lot in terms of some of the reporting around security monitoring, but also feeds into some of the compliance we talked about with policies as well. So you'll see the Azure Security Center default policy actually feeding into some of the information you see within that, but also there's compliance sections within that. So if you want to see how compliant you are against ISO 27001, that can report on that. And actually as part of a managed service, that's great because you can then look at the security score, have a conversation with your customers about what you want to proactively do over the next 3 months to improve their security posture. Okay? Being able to do that at scale, with automation, with your own policies is key. We also have services like AKS, virtual networks, can span across. Everything is basically being built up to work in a cross multi-tenanted way. Okay? Isn't all there today. Some of the actual visibility as to which tenants are which is a bit difficult at times today. Excuse me. But you'll get there. All right, so in terms of actually going to market with this, making use of this mechanism, there's a couple of things we can do. You can actually define the offers within the marketplace. Okay, so, and we're seeing this more towards, if you like, the SME end of the business. If you want to sign up an offer and make it available to people to manage my VM for the lower end customers, they tend to go in there. Most of our medium-sized to enterprise customers tend to have more of a bigger conversation with their managed services partners as to what kind of service they're going to do. Okay? And so for that, we're seeing much more happening with the ARM templates. We'll have a look at what one of those looks like a little bit later, so you can see how simple it is. It does open up the APIs. Okay, so APIs by itself isn't very exciting, but if you talk things like the utilization API, billing API, some of those where you can start looking at the resource graph and get some reporting from those. If you have that cross-tenanted view, you can start leveraging that visibility into the platform. It also feeds into something called managed apps. Has anybody looked at the managed apps or the service catalog aspect of Azure? It's one of those little hidden gems within it. If you have something that you want to deploy into a customer subscription, and it's basically got a UI definition to show how that onboarding deployment looks, so a bit like the old virtual machine deployment screens if you've ever used the portal, then deploys a template and it gives you the ability to manage it ongoing, that's what managed app is. Okay? So again, in terms of new ways of deploying into customer subscriptions, that's a good way of doing things. More for the enterprise accounts and direct. If you've ever seen some of the services we run, such as AKS or Databricks or those, effectively those are Microsoft managed apps that get deployed. Okay, so how does it work? So today, if you've got multiple customers, like I say, your automation is based around going in and out of each one. You go into customer A, do some work, pop out, go into customer B, do the same work. Okay? In and out, in and out. Maybe you script to make that a little bit more effective. What this does, once you've got the authorizations in place and the customer's delegated that access, is the resources you've been given access to, and that might be a whole subscription or it might be one or more resource groups within that subscription, multiple subscriptions, then get projected into your tenancy. So that's a key word. So previously, when you were looking at your own tenancy, when you were looking at that as a managed service, you'd see your own subscriptions. Now you're seeing your customer subscriptions there as well. You can filter on different customers. You can filter on the subscriptions within those customers. You can now do searches. You can do actions. You can apply policy at scale across those. And because it makes use of this new managed services resource provider, you see it over on the right-hand side there, it's baked into everything you can do on the platform. This is not tacked on. This is not something we slid onto the side. This is something that's gone right in underneath, okay? At the lowest level possible to give the right level of access to all these different tools. So it doesn't matter if you're using the portal, PowerShell, CLI, APIs, doesn't matter if you're using SDKs, doesn't matter if you're using different things like RBAC, ARM templates and everything else. Everything is built to make use of this, okay? So it's going in seamlessly for all these different things. Okay. This is actually a screenshot of one of these screens within the portal that you see if you're a customer, okay? So if you're a customer and you search on Lighthouse or search for service providers, you'll get to this screen, okay? And from here, you can see service provider offers from the marketplace, or you can add one, okay? So we have some labs to show how you do this, where you can create and define your own offer, and then quickly add that in. Single command. We'll see a screenshot in a minute. The definitions themselves are an offer, so you have an offer name, you have an offer description. You'll see those on the right-hand side over here. And you also have a list of authorizations. So these are the security principles within your tenancy that you want to be granted access and the role that you want granted. So as we have here, if you wanted one specific user to be a contributor, or maybe it's a group of users, you want to be a contributor and allocated to resource groups, that's what you put in the definition. If you've got an application which is making use of a service principle to get access to do its work, you can define that too. I've got that here with the billing reader. Okay? So you can start combining different things. If you need to have different level of access for different scope, okay. Let that out. Then you can do that with multiple offers. Okay, and just assign those. It is the customer subscription owner that gets to add in definitions. Okay, we'll show you how that process works. And they also do the delegations. So if they then say, okay, I accept that offer, I'm going to assign that to these subscriptions at the top level. Or I'm going to assign it to this resource group or these resource groups. Those are the delegations that they do. Okay? And you'll see that here where 2 resource groups have been delegated to this particular offer. And you can do this via the marketplace, via the portal. There's a couple of real key things with this. The transparency is fantastic. Okay? So the end customer gets to see what your users are doing within their accounts, within the activity log. The end customer gets to revoke that access if they want. They can delete an individual authorization, the delegation. They can delete the whole offer if they want. Okay? Likewise, there's some built-in controls within it. So you cannot see there are back assignments. You can only see those coming from your tenancy. You can't do any data actions. There's no way that you can get access to their storage accounts or anything like that. Okay, it's purely what you're doing on the control plane. So yeah, it's been quite well thought through. Right, I knew you'd love this screen. Bit of techie stuff, but this is basically how complicated the definition part gets. So I've got a definition here for a template, and you can see there's a line at the bottom which will come up on the slide deck when you get it through. It's been covered by the subtitles, unfortunately. But you've got the actual name for it, you've got description for the offer, and then we've got a list of authorizations where these fun little GUIDs, which are the numbers we use to make it a little more complicated than it really is, signify either a user, a group, a service principal, or a built-in role. And that's all those do. So you can get your customers to then basically run a single line within the Cloud Shell, and it gets added. And then they can add it in. As a service provider, the screen you look at is My Customers. Okay, so within this, you can then view all your different customers, and you see the delegations that have been made within those. And you'll see, like I've got on the right-hand side here, you can then filter on both directory and subscriptions within that to change the view of what you're managing. Okay, and obviously do the CLI type commands do the same thing. So it's nice and simple, and it's all baked in. Okay. All right, partner admin link, I know I got mentioned earlier as one of the mechanisms. Obviously we have a number of different mechanisms that we've introduced to help with the recognition process. And the idea is that hopefully through one of these recognition processes, you'll get recognized for the influence you're having with ACR. Okay, so partner admin link is really there to fix a couple of key customer areas. One is if you're working on an enterprise account, if you're working with a managed service on a direct account, and somebody has slid in a bit earlier and registered that at the subscription level for DPOR, then you didn't get to play in that area. Okay? So one of the benefits of partner admin link is you can have multiple partners actually using partner admin link to do the recognition rather for that. Okay? The second part of it is it works at multiple scope levels. So if you have, somebody mentioned about SAP earlier, I think it was you, yeah. So if you've got one organization that's doing CSP for the whole subscription, doing billing, doing support, and another partner is coming out and doing SAP support on one or two resource groups, that works with PAL. Okay? So it helps with those kind of situations. I want to mention it here because if you're doing CSP, it's still worth doing Lighthouse because it changes how you manage. Okay? But your recognition will come through CSP. Okay? But with this mechanism, you can also use that same mechanism to get access into enterprise accounts. You can use that same mechanism to get access into direct accounts, and you can then link up PAL for those admin IDs to get recognition for that through the PAL mechanism. Okay? So if you've been frozen out of certain customer accounts and you do managed services within that, obviously PAL helps address that. Lighthouse makes it easier. So the two mechanisms do work hand in hand. If you are going in using business to business with AAD to get access into a custom subscription, you will have a different signed in user ID. It'll be my ID #ext at customer tenancy name. If you are going in with an ID which actually sits within their subscription, then again you're logging in with that. So you've got different effective signed in user IDs to go into different places. Okay? You need to link in each of those MPN to MPN from those different user principal names, as we call them. Okay? And that's where the mechanism links up. When you have Lighthouse, it works differently in that everything's projected into your tenancy. Okay? And it's your user principals which are being granted access through those authorizations. So as soon as you link up those user principal names to the MPN ID, then all future Lighthouse projections will project those same resources through to get visibility to the same set of users, and they're already linked. Okay? So it means that part of the manual process works better, and the Lighthouse projections should then automatically feed through into PAL for those enterprise accounts and for those direct accounts. Okay? So I just wanted to make that last point particularly clear. Right. Got some resources. So again, there's a few links down the bottom of here. There's links to the Lighthouse documentation, the videos to help explain the process a bit better. I've put a link right at the bottom for some labs we put together on the Azure Citadel site. If you're not familiar with that, then get your techies to sign up to it. We've got an RSS feed on there for the news items, so you can see new content we put there. That's a site that we manage and maintain purely for partner enablement on the technical side of things. Okay, so if you're not using that, make use of that. But it's actually really easy to onboard this stuff. Okay, So build it into what you're doing in terms of managed services, get that visibility, start working with the tools to start using things like policy, monitoring, automation at scale across those multiple partners, because you'll be much more effective. And then when you're on board new customers, automatic recognition, reuse the automation. That's how it works. Good, thank you.